Tim, and yes, I am wearing a Project Hail Mary shirt in order to review Disclosure Day. The difference being maybe that Project Hail Mary was based on a book, so it was already kind of well formed as a story, whereas Disclosure Day, my understanding was just based on kind of a story concept by Steven Spielberg that David Koepp took and turned into a script. I love Steven Spielberg. I have loved him since I was a child. I knew his name was on every one of my favorite movies in some capacity, and he was what made me want to be involved in film. I didn't know quite what he did, but whatever it was, I wanted to do that too because I wanted to make movies. It turns out that I'm more a writer, and yes, I do screenwriting as well. And I've worked on film sets, so I'm familiar with the industry, let's say. I'm not a super big fan of David Koepp's work, though, so maybe the two kind of balance each other out in this, because bottom line for me was this was fine. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It just kind of was. I don't want to say that. This is 2 hours and 25 minutes, and it did not feel long. I mean, it moves along at a good clip. The story is about a weather woman played by Emily Blunt. Her name is Margaret Fairchild, I want to say. Kind of like Lady Elaine Fairchild from Mr. Rogers. Every time I hear Fairchild, that's my first, association, I guess. And Josh O'Connor plays Daniel, and he is on the run from he doesn't work for the government. He works for a company that has, I guess, a government contract, and he's stolen some files, and he's on the run with the files because he wants the world to know the truth about aliens. And what we have is Emily Blunt's character acting as a kind of conduit for the aliens, suddenly able to speak multiple languages, including the alien language, and able to look at people and know things about them, and yada, yada, yada. And the two of them needing to come together in order to, facilitate some kind of world union, because the world's on the brink of another world war. And this is something that's kind of very background in this movie. I feel like that could have been brought forward a little bit so we could better understand the stakes, maybe. There's also, Daniel's girlfriend, who had been a novitiate, was going to be a nun, ended up leaving, not because she didn't believe in God anymore, but, it just didn't feel like the right thing for her, I guess. There's a through line of religion here, and then Colin Firth plays the villain who's chasing them using an alien device to try and... They call it diving. He's able to use this device to find them and send people after them. So a big portion of the movie is them getting somewhere, being found out, having to run away, get caught, get away, we get a lot of that. And so that's part of my issue, was just did we need that many runaway moments? We get some great action sequences, obviously the car and the train. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, I guess I should probably have prefaced this with there might be some spoilers. But yeah, I felt like we didn't do a whole lot with Josh O'Connor's character. It was, the Emily Blunt show in a lot of cases, and she does a fantastic job. Don't get me wrong. She nails it, and you can tell that this role is a lot of work. And I would have liked to have seen it balanced with a little more of Josh O'Connor's story. We only get kind of this, he had been in federal prison, and then he got tapped when he got out because he's got this facility with numbers that it turns out was given to him by the aliens, because basically the two of them are experiencers. They're two people who were picked up by aliens as children, given these gifts or whatever, and then dropped back into their lives. But the thing about Emily Blunt is her gifts only just awaken when a cardinal flies through her window and kind of sets things in motion. Meanwhile, Josh O'Connor's ability to do math, he said that it started when he was in college. So something, I guess, wakes up his ability, but earlier. The thing is, there's a lot of interesting ideas here. There's definitely a lot of commentary happening that, you know, they're trying not to hit the nail on the head, so they're talking around a lot of stuff, the religion stuff and things like that. At one point, a woman kneels in front of Emily Blunt and makes the sign of the cross, and Emily Blunt goes, "I don't want to be your religion," you know. So if you know anything about the Bible and you know the angel of the Lord who is sent, like Metatron, right? Like he's sent to be the voice of God, right? I think that was kind of the vibe I was getting from Emily Blunt's character, like kind of a Metatron, you know, needs to speak for this alien race. So there's kind of a lot of religious stuff going on. There's again the whole like the world needs to come together and unite because we're all one and we need to see ourselves that way. There's an absolute like flat out discussion of how empathy is greater than, you know, hatred, power, fear, money, greed, whatever, and how the money and the greed is literally causing us to make ourselves extinct. Which, you know, all true. Coleman Domingo plays this character, Hugo, who is the one kind of trying to orchestrate getting Daniel and Margaret, and again, very like biblical names here, getting them together and kind of triggering what needs to happen going forward. He also worked for the company that Daniel works for, and he and a group of people have kind of broken off, gone underground to help these aliens that were otherwise being brutalized by the company and the government. Yeah, some of the images and the implied things that happen to these aliens are pretty horrific. I mean, I actually did tear up a couple of times at the end when they do broadcast things. I did stop and think, well, it would have been faster to just put it on TikTok. It would have moved really fast. Because how many people are watching network news anymore, or even cable news? Not that many, I don't think, but it's fine. Steven Spielberg's like gonna turn 80 this year, so I'll give him his his old habits. But the anchor woman, who my understanding is actually or was actually a news anchor woman, her emotions. I mean, she's a good actress. Her emotions were very like visceral when she was. I almost was like, did they not show her any of this until the moment they filmed it? Because, like, it felt very real, her reactions. But yeah, Daniel's girlfriend, Jane, kind of comes and goes as the plot needs. Margaret's boyfriend, Jackson, because of course his name is Jackson. Can we not use this name anymore? I'm so sick of this name. Wyatt Russell, though, he's fun. He does a good job as the little bit of comic relief. He drops out of the middle of the movie, and then we get kind of a scene of him watching the news at the end, like you do. So there are some points where I was like, did we really need these characters? I felt like it was very devoted to the plot, including these, like, alien devices, and, you know, as opposed to developing character outside of Emily Blunt's sudden abilities and her panic attacks and, you know, things like that. Again, really good acting. My problem is largely, I think, with the script and just the drawing out of this story that could probably have... Again, it didn't feel like a long movie, but it didn't also feel like all of what was there needed to be there. So, yeah, I mean, I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I hoped I was going to like it. I didn't hate it, though. It was fine. It was just fine. And again, I might be a little bit biased because I do love Steven Spielberg. I've heard that a lot of people didn't like it. And I think it's more like the expectations were high and it just didn't live up to hype. I do want to see it again. This is one of those things that I think one or two more viewings will help me internalize more of it. At the same time, I mean, I feel like I caught the gist of all the messages that they were trying to feed into this pretty well, because it was not necessarily subtle. Again, they don't necessarily, aside from Coleman Domingo's little speech about empathy, they don't beat you over the head with it, but it's pretty obvious where the strands of messaging are, I guess. Even Colin Firth's character, whose name I can't even remember, Noah was his first name, I can't even remember his last name now, but he has this whole backstory about his wife that is implied, and we just don't get any of that. Like, I just felt like I wanted more character depth, or don't give me these characters. Like, give me more of them, or don't give me them at all. But this kind of like very surface level characterization of a lot of the people was not my favorite, because I'm a character person. I'm a character writer, and I really need to attach to and fall in love with characters to get into a story most of the time. I mean, there's probably plenty of books or movies where I've just been along for the ride and thought it was fun, but those aren't things that stick with me, because characters are what stick with me. People or, you know, whatever that I really connect with. So yeah, it was good. I'd watch it again. Maybe not in the cinema. I wouldn't pay to see it again on the big screen. I've got a pretty large TV. I'll be fine to watch it when it starts streaming, but it was fine. It makes it sound like I didn't like it, but it's easier to pick out the things that didn't work for me than to say, well, on the whole, you know, there was a good story there. There was really good acting. Like I said, there's some good set pieces, some good action pieces. I like the practical effects. The CGI on the animals was pretty weak. That was actually to the point of like taking me out of the story. They're looking at like this fox and they're like, oh no, that's not a real fox though. That's not a real fox. I'm like, yeah, obviously. I'm not fooled. So I'd be surprised if you were. It ends almost a cliche way. I kind of knew the moment. I was like, oh, we're not gonna hear this, and it's gonna cut to black, and that's what happened. The aliens were, I guess, fine. They're pretty standard aliens. Nothing new or interesting about these alien beings. All of the aliens in the footage are pretty like short, small, but then at the end, the one that Hugo brings out of storage, basically the one he saved, is like really tall. And I was like, why is this one so much bigger than the others? Were the others children, or do they only have short pilots? Is this the mother alien? What is happening? So there was that too. I mean, I was just like, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm probably overthinking it, but you know, I noticed. So yeah, that's my kind of rambling review. My husband was like, when I think of all the sci-fi movies that Spielberg has done, I don't like any of them less than I like this one. And I like a lot of them more. And I think, I don't know how many of them I like more than. I haven't seen Minority Report in a long time. I remember liking it, but I probably liked it about as much as this. His War of the Worlds was pretty good. Close Encounters and E.T. are obviously classics, although nowadays if I sat down and watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I'm pretty sure it would feel slow. I think my kids would get bored. I showed them Blade Runner and they were like, oh my god, this is so boring. So, you know, times have changed. I didn't hate it. I think it's a good movie and a fine addition to his repertoire, oeuvre, whatever you want to call it. But it just didn't quite live up to hype, I think, is really the problem for it. There was a lot of hype around it, and it just didn't quite hit the mark. A few adjustments would have helped it hit the bullseye, and it just wasn't quite there. If you've seen it, let me know. How does it stack up for you as far as other Spielberg movies, other sci-fi movies? For me, Project Hail Mary is still very high on my list of sci-fi movies. I don't know, something about the warm buddy of that works more for me than this. I really wanted maybe more of a connection between Daniel and Margaret. I wanted to see, I don't know, something more there too. So I'll be watching the next Lestat tonight, so I'll have that for you tomorrow, maybe day or two at least. But until next time, take care.